Smart.
Jose, what's happening?
What's going on, Mach?
Hey, welcome to Spark.N.Stride, brother.
I appreciate the invite, man.
It's really good to see you, brother.
Likewise, man. I didn't realize you were sitting over here down the shore, hoisted up, man. It's pretty nice, man.
Yeah, thank you,
God bless you. God bless your family. God bless everything that you've been, what got you here. Yeah, it's pretty neat, man. It's pretty
I really
cool.
appreciate that, man. Yeah, so, Jose, what's on your mind?
Look, man, I started, today I left work. I decided that based on the scheduled activities, I just said, you know what? I said, I'm going to take a half a day today, right? And did what I had to do in order to check out. And I said, and I'm just going to come out to Spark.N.Stride, man, and see what's going on down here. So, like I said, I appreciate the invite, man. And I just said, because of today, half a day off, I'm gonna roll it over into tomorrow. I actually took tomorrow off.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's just sometimes you're just drained. You get what I'm saying, man? You're just like, man, for the first 72 hours of this week, I feel like I did 2 weeks worth. You get what I'm saying? And it just sometimes you just get that feeling, man. And then I will say this, right? I think you came in at the right time. Like I said, look, I looked at the invite, June 14th. I was like, yo, Mach brought me in here on the Army's birthday. So I was like, yo, what's he got going on? So I said, let me dress for the occasion, right? So
you give me too much credit.
So I said, yo, so this dude is I said he's doing pretty good because damn, to have it right on June 14th. And then I just said, you know what, up to this point, I think I feel a little bit exhausted, right?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is it wasn't intentional, but when, having this on the schedule and the way it has been going, honestly, boiling over since last week, right? At the work and at the workspace is what I'm referring to. And the way it goes is like now you come in here and it's like, you know what? It was a opportunity to take a half a day rolling into the to the full day tomorrow or whatever. But I come in Friday and do like cleanup. You get what I'm saying?
No, that's what's up, man.
Family day. They kicked out a family day on Friday. Not for me.
Okay.
But I get an opportunity to telework,
right?
Which is always good, and go on there and maybe get more stuff done since everybody's out doing the enjoyment, which is rightfully so, man.
Nah, man, that's a good look. That I feel like sometimes like with the because you're working for the government at the moment, right? When I first met my wife, well, obviously we weren't married. We were dating. Yeah. She's like, why don't you just take like a mental health day? And I looked at her and I'm like, a mental health day? I'm like, babe, like we don't get mental health days. She's like, you don't get mental. She's like, the military doesn't have mental health days. And I'm like, yeah, no, we don't have that.
It's crazy you say that because your wife pointing that out, the mental health day, I'm not sure if you've heard this before throughout your tenure in the Air Force, but it's unfortunate that we have something called safety stand down or stand down day, right? And usually these stand down days come due to an unfortunate event or an incident, right? So where it's too late, you get me? And then so a lot of units started incorporating that and practicing not necessarily a mental health day, but it's just like, look, we as leaders need to keep a close eye on our troops, soldiers, right? For me, and it's like you have to do that because you have to identify now when is that unspoken mental health day, and unfortunately, I know it more, or we know. I could probably speak on behalf of them. We know it more when it's referred to stand down day because of a loss of a soldier or something like that.
Right.
Man, crappy.
Really unfortunate, right? That's how it, that's how we equate it. I don't feel like kind of pisses me off in a way, right? Because the way she's referring to it is a day to yourself.
Correct.
Some time to yourself. Yep. Maybe, just whatever it is you want to do. But unfortunately, with our backgrounds, we equate it as a stand down day or like a mental health day because of something that happened. A tragedy. Yep. We got to change that, Jose.
No, that's listen, man, like my conversation with you initially, when you started talking about making that impact I want to come out here and I want to talk until I can't talk no more, until everybody's tired of hearing me, because that's when you see the ground starts breaking. And kudos to you, because we need more voices to do what you're doing in order to, bring in whoever you can, whoever you like. I talk to the next, right? Just like we do. That's what our background is. And if we can, the more people we can get on your team, right? I might necessarily not be a full-time employee for you, but just a few words that come out of everybody's mouth can reach. If we reach one person,
for sure,
we met the goal.
Yeah,
right? I'm not going to change everybody, but if we can reach one person, the deal is done.
Jose, so that is you're summing up exactly like what I was thinking when I first kind of began this journey of Spark.N.Stride, right? So first thing is that you get folks, and it's unfortunate because it's the ones that are closest to you, and the ones closest to you is who you want to tell first. And a lot of times, man, I'm talking about from my own experience. It's you want to do what? Why would you do that for? That's stupid. You're automatically downplaying the opportunity or even the idea, right? And I've never been one to follow ignorance. Been a good follower. I just don't follow ignorance, right? And when it comes to dreaming and dreaming big, that's what I'm gonna do. I've always done that. I've always dreamt big, right? Nothing was out of reach for me. And the power of the mind is something incredible, man. You can really manifest. You can put things out into the universe with good energy and good spirit, and it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you tenfold, right? One of my biggest things growing up, we didn't have much, but my mom, she's passed away now, but my mom was extremely humble with others, and although we didn't have much, she would give you whatever she had. Right.
Correct.
I've always carried that on to the point where, I've had friends and they, I've seen them years later. They're like, hey, man, do you remember these sunglasses? And I'm like, dude, you gave me these sunglasses. And I'm like, when? I complimented you on these sunglasses and you took them off and gave them to me. I was like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that sounds like something I would do. Ultimately, I would give you the shirt off my back, because the universe just brings it back to you. Man, I don't know. That was a tangent. I don't know where we were going with that.
No, listen, I'm glad you said that, right? You pointed out something interesting. You're trying to relay, you're trying to gain, right, from those that you trust, or maybe you don't have trust. You're trying to see where you can find more trust, right, to spark and stride what you have going on.
Right.
And what happened is it was on purpose. If you haven't looked at that total scope. So for the people that are going, I'm not necessarily say against what you're trying to do or don't fully believe that it's possible, that's part of this journey for you. So the journey is that now that right there became an obstacle for you, right? And it's part of what's happening right now in a lot of veteran lives. There's obstacles, right? It's not that things get put in play for you on purpose to continue to deteriorate you. It's let's see if you have been taking opportunities to, let's say, for instance, right, you're dealing with this hardcore PTSD. There's so many things out there, but you got to go out there and find it, right? You go through this training, right? And then this training is supposed to make you better, right? Not overnight, but it's a form of therapy where you start going and seeing what the progress looks like. And then ultimately it leads you to going back and get into this conversation with your buddies, doing your Spark.N.Stride pitch. They're not buying it, but that's your obstacle. Now you've went through the training to get through that obstacle. And then once you get to the other side of the obstacle, you're yo, look at this. I just grew in the matter of the last 7 days. I went from here to here. And then that's just part of it. I just think that there's going to be a turn everywhere, which way you go, right? That path, that road is not straight. You got to take turns somewhere. And sometimes those turns are there's a rock, there's a hole in the middle of the road. Let's go around it, right? Or what is the path of least resistance? Sometimes it's not the path of least resistance. Sometimes you got to break it down and be darn, I got to come all the way out here to do that, and then get back on point. Then that's what you got to do. So that was whether you realized it or not.
You got to go off-road a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting that you said that because you're going to have those people. Those obstacles are those people that are going to throw that game, not necessarily things that you want to hear, and not everybody's going to give you the feedback that you're looking for, right? But you're going to drive forward, whether it's negative or whether it's positive, and you're going to drive forward, and that's what's ultimately going to get you to the next phase. I like it. I like it. We get into the we go get the fatigues on, the battle dress fatigues on, and bring it back old school, right? It feels good, man. It's powerful, man.
You know what's Jose, the other thing too, right, is like when I'm talking to my family or like my close friends, especially like in terms of dreaming, right? No, not dreaming, but like, thinking outside the box, and because we're always stressed that in the military, right? Like you got to think about outside the box.
Yep.
You have to be innovative,
right?
To be able to compete with our adversaries and so forth and so forth, right?
100%.
So I feel like I think that in a lot of situations, like is with our younger folks, our younger soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, right? The disconnect between this new generation and the older generation is really wide, and I think it's getting wider. You would think that it would get closer with technology, but the older generation of service member, they need to get on board with what these younger folks are bringing to the table. What this younger generation, the tools that they have, because they're just doing things at a rapid pace that I feel like a lot of the older folks, myself included, right? Myself included. There are things that Harrison, right?
Yeah.
He's a Air Force reservist, right? On the outside, he's a software engineer or coder programmer of sorts. And he has something in him where he wants to serve in uniform, right?
Correct.
Beautiful. I walk in one day into the office and he literally, brother, I wish you could have seen this. So he has his laptop up, right? His laptop, his personal laptop. And then he has the work computer, like the military computer. The military computer is running so slow and just, maybe is running updates or patches or whatever it may be. He's playing a video game on his laptop that requires him, in order to move anything around, so he has to code it to move it. Or I don't know the name of it. He's literally coding and playing a video game with one hand, and he's waiting for the work computer to come up so he can do like, military work or so forth. And I'm just like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just waiting. This is taking a while. I'm like, are you coding? He's like, yeah, I'm coding. Just like, that to me was mind blowing. Right. So what in terms of like Spark.N.Stride and like the whole thing with Spark.N.Stride was, for me, was just a spark. And the way I equate the spark is to just stay motivated, stay thinking, and stay pushing forward. Right. Like that's the spark part of it. And then, my bad. I mean, moving forward is the stride part.
Correct.
Right. So the spark, the idea, the motivation, and then the stride is pushing it forward.
Moving right into that developmental piece.
Exactly. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, if we could just folks on board with like what this, because a lot of times, and you've seen it too. We've been in meetings and we think that the higher ranking people in the room, the people with the most time in the room are know everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is not true.
No, not the case at all, man.
Right?
Little do we know until you start digging deep and finding out who's in your ranks, man. I agree with that. I think I strongly believe towards the end of my tenure in the Army, it's kind of weird how some tenures go, because for me, it was pretty much soldierless for like the last 5 years. And what I mean by that is being assigned to a unit where it's all, senior non-commissioned officers and officers, right? And then so the only aspect of soldiering or still mentoring was that the unit that I was a part of was a unit to where you were an observer, controller, trainer, pretty much establishing a relationship with Reserve and National Guard units. And then they didn't know, but their soldiers were kind of my soldiers as well. So whenever I had the opportunity, you would get your mentorship in there, your advising and all that stuff. And that's what pretty much we were on the ground to do. You're absolutely right. And I think that we lost the opportunity as leaders to open the platform up. And I think that if we don't open the platform up to everyone in the room, we're going to miss out huge on a specific capability, right? Capability, just like the young airman you were talking about,
right?
Hairston, who you was like, yo, this is crazy. I had no idea, right? And it's just because I think that just we're so stuck on old and we're not maintaining relevancy, right? And how this younger generation is growing on us old heads, and we're not allowing that opportunity for them. And then could you imagine like opening that platform for this younger generation moving in and seeing what it is? Yo, were you trained before you came to us? What is it? What is your skill set other than potentially just this or whatever? But yeah, it's just capability is how I look at it.
Capability, skill set, right? Just it's really impressive what this generation is what they're into. I mean, like even, like I look at my daughter's 5 going on 6. Her generation's Generation Alpha.
We lost track, right?
I gotta tell you, I like that name. Like that
yeah. Yep.
Alpha, like Generation Alpha.
Oh, that's usually up front, right?
Yeah. Because we missed, I guess we're like reset or whatever. We went from Z to A.
Yeah, my kids usually call me, what do they call me? Boomer. And I got to put them in check. You get me? That's not true. They just try to mess with me.
Oh, okay.
I said, my father's a boomer.
They, when I was at the Senior Non-Commissioned Officer Academy last year, in at Maxwell Air Force Base, I really enjoyed the, what was it called? Like, it was like generational diversity. Ultimately, they were explaining us to like how currently there's like three generations in the workplace.
Correct.
Right. And how, what's important to one generation is really not important to the next generation. But what's funny is they have you like narrow it all the way down. Like you really peel the onion on it. And when you get down to the very bottom, the comparison is very similar across the board.
Yeah.
There's a few things in each silo that differentiates, but when you get all the way down to it, and I forget like what the key terms were. It was like respect, inclusive,ness, and there was like a few other things that each generation shares or values within the within the workspace. Yeah, man, that was pretty interesting. Another thing, you probably get a kick out of this, Jose, was we were talking about, and this is during this academy. It was like 6 weeks long. I mean, 5 weeks long or so. What they were talking about in one presentation was that the way the recruiting numbers are being affected for all services at the moment.
Yeah.
In the sense that like they're not making them. Right. This younger generation is just not looking at the military as an opportunity or so forth. Right. What they are looking at though is this generation that was exposed to COVID. So what I'm getting at is like a junior high school, a middle school type, right? So COVID was 4 years ago almost.
COVID was, I would just say 20, my daughter was class of 2020. So that was the first COVID class.
Right.
So 2020.
So we're going on almost like 4 years, right?
Yep.
So hear me out. So in 8th grade, right? An 8th grader that went through COVID is now either this year or next year graduating high school.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So now in terms of like recruiting this person, male, female, doesn't matter to me, but recruiting this specific person who experiences this specific thing, now they're coming into this workforce, right? Because they're graduating high school and they're coming into the workforce and possibly the military, right? However, they're coming in with a different mindset. They're coming in with this mindset that, hey, I can work from home. Hey, I can go to school from home. And not only did they have to go to school from home, they saw their mom and dad working from home. So the capability is there to get it done, right? So these folks are going to come to the DOD, the Department of Defense, and say, hey, hey, Air Force, like, what kind of telecommute do you have? Or telework, do you have, or so forth, right? We're not ready for that. We're not ready to, and it goes back to what I was saying before about, this generational gap of understanding on how things are evolving. They're evolving so fast, right? Could you imagine going to the recruiter and saying, hey, like, will I be able to, in this career field that you're assigning me to, how much telework can I do here?
Would I be able to telework basic training? Is that possible?
Right? But again, clearly that's something that you have to be present for, and there's
Correct.
there's benefits to basic training. But think about it though, right? Like going out into the operational military, right? Finishing your basic training, finishing your technical training or your MOS training, finishing all that stuff, and then you get to your first duty station. This generation is expecting that they can some sort of telework, some sort of like, and the sense is, they're not, this generation, they're not beat, dude. They're not beat for driving in an hour. They're not beat on spending the gas. They're not, they're smarter than that, and it's not what we grew up, like for me, driving 45 minutes to come into work, I accept that. You accept it too. Right?
Yep.
This younger generation, they're not for that.
Nope.
They're not doing that.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's interesting that you say that because I have teenagers in the house. And one of the, I think you can almost catch me saying this daily to the teenagers, right? The little ones will hear what they hear or whatnot. But daily, what I catch myself telling them is pretty much, don't get you, right? Ever since COVID, right? Because COVID put a damper on everybody's life, right? The way of living just totally drastically changed. And then so what happened was I came out and just said, as the years started trickling, we're like, we're still in this I call it a COVID era, right? Like it's an era because it expanded so long. But one thing that I always reminded my teenagers, don't look at your mother, don't look at your stepmother, don't look at your dad that were teleworking from home and expect for 1 minute that this is the expectation when you go out and seek your first job. I said, if you go in there with that expectation that you're going to be working from the home, unless it is a full remote job, that you choose that. You got to earn it. And then it goes back to the constant just drilling, the sacrifice. I had a conversation with you about it. God bless your home. But there was sacrifice that was involved with all of this, right? Mm-hmm. Where you came from, your roots or whatnot. Not that you became better than all of your peers and all of your friends, but you dug deep and you said, there's a way that I can be better than how I was brought up. Mm-hmm. Just because now, boom, you got a 5-year-old. Bang, now you got to do for her, right? Right along with your or you're the wingman, right? Because your wife is the tip of the spear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
So, and this is what it turns out to be. And it's like for me, it was always a constant reminder. Listen, this right here is sacrifice. Right now, I'm getting a breather with this telework, right? I can't control this, right? However, you got to go out there and earn it, and they're still navigating it, right? And I help them when it's required, but I'm still putting it in place. But you're absolutely right, where the expectation is huge, right? And I'm not saying it could be for a good thing for some people, but not for everybody, Mats.
Yeah.
You got to go out there and earn this thing. Just like, times have changed, but the generation now can't expect that they're gonna just be aerosoled care packages, like you know what I'm saying, and it's messed up because we laugh about the care packages in the form of an aerosol, but what is it? We do have that. Mm-hmm. Uber, DoorDash, those are care packages, brother, and they're being dropped right at your front door.
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to navigate, man.
Man, it's wild, Jose, because my daughter, man, she'll ask for something and she'll ask for something and I'm like, oh, I have to you have to wait because I have to go to the store or whatever. She's like, no, just go on your phone. She's like, go on Amazon.
Yeah.
And this morning, so we gave her these phones that we don't use anymore, right?
Yeah.
So she has
same at home.
So she my wife's old BlackBerry is her play around phone.
Yeah.
I saw that she was trying to hide something from me, right? I'm like, what are you trying to hide from me? She's trying to be sneaky about it, with her bag. She's like, oh, that is my phone. And I'm like, I don't think you could take that to school. She's like, I've been taking it.
That's how it is, man.
So I'm like, why are you taking it to I'm like, baby, it doesn't work. She's like, oh, it's fine. But so she's already seeing how we are with the phone and what we're doing and so
Part
forth.
of it. It's part of the uniform.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be really, really wild to see because you got to remember, and I know there's many people who are recollecting on this sort of like, phenomenon with the phones and everything. Everybody's like reminiscing on, how it was different for us and so forth. But I'm really, really intrigued by what her generation is gonna like. I don't know what we'll see in our lifetime. Hopefully we can be around to see it, but can you only imagine what kind of technology they're going to be using in 10 years?
Listen, I agree, because the technology portion, true story. I got 3 teenagers. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. My daughter's now 21. She's 21, first got a cell phone. This is my oldest. First got her cell phone when got the same benefit, because so they went through that their whole, like, you tell me if you've seen that now. Someone get all the way into high school, and finally now, obviously, I have one right now who's 17, going to be a senior next year. He finally got it, as he's coming in to be a freshman, so his 8th grade year. But my 2 oldest, they never saw a cell phone, ever.
Wow.
Until they were nearly done high school.
Wow.
Insane. Now, ask me about my 8 and 5-year-old, they're fidgeting just like yours is.
Wow.
Which you can see the drastic change and the impact of our daily habits and what it's doing towards that generation. We talk about generational changes, but believe it or not, we actually contribute as whatever you want to call us, leaders, parents, mentors, advisors. We contribute to that generational change without even realizing it and without even knowing it, which is a funny factor to it, because you're sitting there, you might look at her funny, but you're like, how can I blame her? Because she's been looking at you and your wife the entire time. And then she's like, well, I need to get down how they're getting down. And by the time they get to our age, it's like multiplied times 40, right?
And I feel bad about it sometimes, because I know that I'm on my phone a lot. I'm on my phone a lot.
Yeah.
And it's for a number of reasons. I'm not going to try to make excuses.
Yeah.
It's a phone call. It's an email. It's responding to someone. It's, providing content and looking at like analytics. Where am I going wrong? Just all this stuff. But I need to make a better effort to kind of like, I guess for myself, I'm thinking to myself, is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that she's seeing us navigate this instrument? I don't think it is. I think what can be perceived as bad is taking away attention from what else you could be doing with them than being on your phone.
That real, natural, true conversation, right?
Yeah.
You're right. I think it's a twofold thing. It does get away from that, but it also shows you how intelligent the generational change that's coming up, right? Like, how on earth is she figuring this out at 5? I said the same thing about my 5-year-old and my 8-year-old. I'm just like, how is this possible? But there's a lot of exploitation out there too. It's not only just us. It's just like that simple kids YouTube that leads to regular YouTube, that leads to Mr. Beast, and you know.
Yep.
And it's a lot of expansion, man, that's happening out there in the social media market. That's for good or bad, right?
Yeah.
The kid there's got to be a line where, as parents, we're going to sit there and intervene if possible, when necessary. But at the same time, you're just like, you know what? At some point, I'm not going to be here for eternity, right? But I'll be here for you for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? Because you gotta have to figure it out. I'm not gonna be able to hold your hand
right
all the way through. So I think I strongly believe in that little tiny bit of the way they just grow in and just move on and figure this stuff out. Like, because my 8-year-old is just like mind-boggling, the things that he says, the videos that he watches about the Hindenburg, about the Titanic, and how it went down. And he watches video after video and he dissects the videos. It's nuts.
And he's 8 years old.
Nuts. And it's like, yeah.
And he's into history like that, like into that.
Into history, and I keep telling my wife, I was like, "This kid is gonna be, it's gonna be some history buff or whatnot." He gets stuck to it much. He gets stuck to it. I've never seen anything like it. I have 5 children, 2 marriages. I'm remarried. Of
God
course.
bless you. 5 children.
And 5 children. They range from 5. My oldest is 21. But the crazier thing is that, like the changes when from one to the next, and I'm still learning as a parent, even now with the youngest 5, right?
Right.
I don't have all the secrets and all the tricks to the trade, but you got to remember that with my first 3, who are on the older stages now, I was deployed a lot doing the service of the Army. So what I missed with them, I was able to somewhat try to glue together and be that new dad per se, right? With different experiences with the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old, which was an interesting ordeal if you look at it, if you've heard someone into that similar scenario. You get what I'm saying?
No, that's got to be tough, man. That's got to be tough with all the deployment stuff. You have young kids. I had a buddy on Spark.N.Stride yesterday.
Okay.
Extremely like childhood. We go way, way, way back. Like a brother to me, right? And we were he was he's a combat Marine vet. He's like a no bullshit kind of guy though, dude. Like he's a no excuse guy. No excuse. Just none. Like, don't come to him with an excuse.
Correct.
And I admire that about him. You know what I mean? Because I think I'm a little bit different in that aspect. Like, maybe as like being a first sergeant or so, just really trying to understand all like the different angles of possible. You're giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Not saying that he doesn't, but he's a for real dude. Yeah. Right, he's a no bullshit kind of guy. I don't even know where I was going with that, but it was with the deployment stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Dealing with right.
So
he's a
Marine. He's deployed, and he's done like incredible things, and an incredible leader, leader. Like Jose, this is the guy, right? That Charlie's on the other side. A few yards away. They're coming in hot. Mortars are coming in. Yeah. This is the guy who's like standing up.
Yeah.
This is the guy who's standing up and he's like
to make sure everybody's taking cover.
Yeah, like
and then I'll take my cover.
Yep. That's him.
If he does.
That's him. And hey, we're going forward. Yeah. Right?
No, I hear that.
And you will follow him. Mm-hmm. We were talking about, one of the things I asked him, I was like, hey, do you think like leaders are born or made? And we went down a whole different thing. And I kind of wish he was here because this would have been really, really good. But I'll introduce you to him one day. His name is
that's for another time. Yeah, it's always
But what was your first deployment?
It's crazy. So the first one that I had was back in 90, and so I came in 99 to the Army. And
that's when I
was
in.
active duty. Oh, get out of here.
I came in 99.
So 99, I came in. 2001, brother, 9/11.
Yeah.
9/11 kicked off. October 3rd, I was in Uzbekistan.
Whoa.
October 3rd. It was during the Rumsfeld era.
Okay.
And he was sitting there asking for these permissions for us to get from point A to point B, asking for granting airspace. And that's how it was, man. And October 3rd, we went into an emergency readiness deployments exercise immediately, man, Fort Drum, New York.
Really?
And
what was your job? What was
3 weeks? So by trade, I was an infantryman by trade, 11 Bravo.
Really?
Usually, what people refer to, but infantryman, 11 Bravo. You hear somebody say 11 Bravo? It's a straight up ground pounder.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But that's what my
and he was the Marine kid, right?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like, because I don't think anybody else is just going to, mortars coming in, raining in on the hot landing zone, right, or the drop zone. They're not going to be out. They're going to be actively, taking cover. But I mean, that's what it is, man. You direct your people. But infantryman by trade.
So we grew up in Brooklyn. My buddy Vinny ends up going into the Marines. I went into the Air Force, and during my deployments, right, anytime that I would see like a Marine, or like a soldier or anything, or if we're online for chow, dude, I would let those guys go right in front of me.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, why do you do that? And I'm just like, these guys are going outside the wire. We're not like don't get me wrong, we have special operations in the Air Force and that kind of thing. Yeah. But I've never been part of a special operations unit. You know what I mean? Like I know it exists. I know some guys that have done it. Much respect to them. You know what I mean? I would let them cut in front of me in line too. It's out of respect.
No. Yeah, so you garnered something that that was, it caught your eye. You understood the surrounding, you understood the mission, and that's what you feel. That's how you felt, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just like, to me, it's ultimate respect.
Yeah.
Like top tier. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's mandated or mandatory, but the actions that for you to see what's going on around you and apply that, I mean, that's tremendous. You get what I'm saying? But not a lot of people sit with that same mentality. And I think that's that could be like another topic, another story, man. And that's and it all derives from the whole, it's like crazy because we going back to the generational thing.
Right.
But it's like, we're not all there. And I think that's what the generational talent that's moving up now, they won't understand that piece that you're referring to when you say, look, I mean, you have that vision, right? They don't have it. They have something else. You may not be there, but ultimately nobody's opening that platform like we were speaking to before to put these two forces together and create something bigger and better, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I think there's still, it's always the term is there's always room for improvement,
right?
And I don't see anything wrong with it, man. I respect it for you to. I was always the guy living outside the wire, and then so not that I wouldn't ever. I knew my place and where we were. So don't get me wrong. If we were on a timeline where I wasn't going out, you can kind of see who would step up to the chow hall and who was on a movement mission. Like, man, these guys have been outside the wire all day. They snuck on base to get some good hot chow, right?
Yep.
And then get them out. You said you may not win out the wire during that time, but you had that vision to understand what was going on around you and let those troopers get in and get out, because you have no idea what that piece of hot chow means, especially when you've been living outside and not near that chow hall, that KBR chow halls or whatnot, that extravagant stuff. And to get a hot piece of meal and not have to eat an MRE, man, is huge, bro. Yeah. You have no idea what that little gesture that you did, right? You don't know.
Right.
I'm telling you, though.
Yep.
You have no clue. And those dudes will always remember that guy, whatever your rank was, that let me go
yeah, I was young, too. I was like a senior airman.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah. I was
right?
Like yeah, this was like 2000.
You're not going to see that now, Mach. You're not going to see that now.
Man, I wish I...
Your level during that time at a young airman now where you would see it, if that person had that mentor, that most wanted mentor, right? And that mentor was really doing their job, and then that young trooper was really admiring and looking up to that mentor in order to you created, like, so going back to the story with you having with Vinny, that's his name?
Yeah, Vinny.
And then so it goes back to, it's like, are they born, or are they created, right? I think that's a hot topic. I think it can go either which way you want to do it. But the way I always understood it was, I was the NCO, the senior non-commissioner that I was, because of all that I took from all of my leaders, right? Good, bad, indifferent, didn't matter. I got all of that, put it in my toolkit, and then I created who I was as a senior non-commissioned officer, Vera. And to me, not saying that I was created, but I think that I put my time and my work, and I valued that the Army wanted to make me a leader. And if I didn't want to be a leader, I probably should never have been in the Army. Like, that's what the Army is doing. I can't speak on behalf of all the branches, but I'm assuming that the general line that we all walk on, that I think we have one thing in common, is that we want to produce leaders, right? We want to get you to the next level. And then so we're not necessarily going to create you, but we're going to give you all the tools necessary to purge you in that direction. Show us what you got, right? And then so we monitor progress. And then so that's why I always say this, like, born, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, we got some good genes where I came from, to where my brothers and myself and even my sister, it's like, give it a task, We're going to run with it. And you're necessarily, we're not going to like kerplunk and fall or fail or whatnot, but we're going to drive forward like, yo, I got everything I need. Let me drive this or whatnot. But kudos to all the great leaders. And I'm going to give, not necessarily put down the ones that weren't so great, but that together created who I was ultimately. Honestly, man, I probably wouldn't be here today if I didn't take that creation as real as I did back during that time, growing up, young NCO, moving in, oh man, let's do this, Next thing you know, you get to where you get to, man, and you start affecting people's lives as a leader, and you're like, yo, I was made for this, right? And then it goes back to like, wait a minute, were you made? Were you born that way? Right. Or were you created or whatnot? Right. And it's just, I think it's a lot of inner drive, man, which is, go ahead.
I think also too is like, did the stars line up to provide you the opportunity to lead? Because sometimes you could want to be a leader, you could have all the best intentions, but you're just not in the right position. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens that way, right? So, and a lot of good mentors throughout my career, a lot of good advice passed down. And, one of the good ones was, you gotta grow in the pot that you're planted in.
That's right.
Right? You gotta grow, like, yes, you may not be in a leadership position at the moment, but this is what we need you to do. This is what your task, this is your charge. And you gotta, again, grow in the pot that you're planted in, right?
Right.
I'm thinking about a lot of what you just said, Jose. Like, I mean, it's just really bringing me back to, again, opportunity, being a leader, before being a leader, being a good follower, not having the best supervisors or leadership, right?
Yeah.
My first Air Force base was Charleston, South Carolina. And so my tech school, my training was 6 weeks long. So they called us Pop-Tarts because we were just in and out so quick, right? So I joined the Air Force in December of '99. I put my hand up on December 7th, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, right? The attack on Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And while we were swearing in, the NCO, the senior NCO, he was like, hey, like, do you guys know what today is? A lot of us didn't. I did. I'm big on into history and so forth, right? I didn't realize. I was like, oh wow, it is, right? So there was like a sense of like patriotism on that at that moment, right?
Correct.
So long story short, I get through basic training, I get through tech school, and it happens so quick because my tech school wasn't that long, right? So I go from Brooklyn to Charleston, South Carolina, in less than 6 months. Like, I think I got there like March 18th of 2000. My supervisor, the day that I meet her, the first thing she says to me is, what are you doing here? You guys normally join the Army. Jose, I'm so naive. I don't even know what that really means.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of have an idea of what it means, but I'm so brand new to the Air Force. I'm smart enough to know, like, don't start no shit. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that was clearly a side comment on, that wasn't a compliment. Right.
Correct.
So that's how my career like starts at my first base. Right. So then I was, when you're talking about taking the good and the bad from your different leadership and making it your own, I always think to myself, again, giving people like the benefit of the doubt, like maybe she was just like in a not good space at that time, Maybe she was exposed to something that I don't have any knowledge about. Maybe, or maybe she was just flat out prejudiced or racist. I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that was like a really wild thing to say to a young guy who's just showing up to the installation for the first time. But what I'll tell you is that I ended up having a really hard time. I had a really hard time with my immediate leadership at the time. And I was on my way out, Jose. Like, I'm not going to, I was on my way out. Had things continued, I think I would have been, I don't think I would have made it a year, right? And I remember reflecting and thinking to myself, I really need this to work. I really need this Air Force thing to work because I don't have anything back at home, you know? And one of the main reasons why I joined was because high school sweetheart had ended up going away to college, and I felt like such a loser that I wasn't able to go away the way she did. And then she ended up like, you know, through her own growth, like hooking up with her RA, which crushed me, like literally crushed me, right? And I just wasn't sure. I had no direction. I wasn't sure which way to go. So when I ended up choosing the Air Force and making it so far that I made it through basic training, I made it through tech school. Now I'm at my first installation, and now I'm being subject to prejudice, racist comments, because that was just the one of many, right? And you know, I was really trying to think to myself, like, man, like, what's happening here? But back to what you were saying about mentorship, there was somebody who didn't work in my department who I think could kind of see that I was having a hard time. He would talk to me. His name was Master Sergeant Martin, but at first they were calling him Master Sergeant Rhodey, and I didn't understand. Like, I thought that was his name, but what it really was that he was retiring in 6 months, and the Rhodey stands for retired on active duty. So he was a short timer, right? So he's on his way out. But he's like, hey man, you should come by my office in the mornings. You know, just whenever. So I worked in the hospital. I was doing medical logistics. So I would have to deliver to all the accounts in the hospital, all the different medical supplies. So while I was, you know, in his part of the hospital, I would go talk to him, you know, 10-minute little mentorship, 15, 20, 30. And one of the 3 things that he, you know, told me early on, he's like, hey man, you're having a hard time like transitioning and so forth. Yeah. He's like, try doing some of these things I'm going to tell you. And he was like, hey, like, what time do you come into work? What time does your duty day start? Duty day starts at 7:30. What time do you show up? I show up at 7:30. He's like, no, listen, come in at 7. I'm like, 7? He's like, just trust me, come in at 7. What time does your duty day end? Like, ends at 4:30. No, your duty day ends at 4:45. Okay, just do this. I'm like, okay. He's like, do you know how to make a pot of coffee? I'm like, no, I don't know how to make a pot. Because growing up in New York City, we don't make a pot of coffee. You go to the corner store, you get your coffee, you keep going. He's like, learn how to make a pot of coffee. So he teaches me how to make a pot of coffee, right? So I go to the BX, I buy a coffee maker, I bring it to the office, and I start showing up at 7, making a pot of coffee. And then the last thing he tells me is, if there's nothing going on, like if you're done for the day, because I worked in a warehouse, he's like, just pick up a broom. He's like, sweep the floor till you can't sweep it no more. He's like, things will turn around. Jose, and I started doing that. And before you know it, within like 3-6 months later, like we got some new people in. Now we had some more diversity. And I had turned around this, call it, you know, narrative or so forth that was I shouldn't say targeted, but the narrative changed, right? I am so grateful for that opportunity that I got a chance to meet someone like that, because look at me now, right? 24 years later, you know, retired. I don't know that would have happened without someone taking out the time to share some mentorship, you know? So,
yo, this is crazy. You talked about growing, right? I'm gonna leave you with this, Manch.
No, don't leave, bro. Come on, we're just getting started.
Yeah, right. No, I want to close out something that you talked about that, you know, came to my attention, right? And you're talking about grow in the pot where you were planted. That's a perfect analogy to use, right? And I say that because we say in baseball, there's a term that goes, you don't have all-star players on your squad, right? You have what they coined as, those are great team guys. And these team guys, what they do is they make everybody else better within the team. And so to go back onto your grow in the pot and where you are planted, be a team, right? Be a teammate. great teammates, I strongly believe great teammates produce better leaders, right? And what I mean by that is there could have been a time, because it happened to me plenty of times, where I, for lack of better words, thought that my leader was lacking, right? But I didn't kick him in the face. I didn't bust him out in front of my peers. I was a better teammate for my team, and it made that person better. That's part of leadership too. Lo and behold, we never understood and really knew that until after the fact. But it's like, dude, I just created something, right? And I'll leave you with these last words here because I got to go do number one. Ultimately, I strongly believe, be the cure, not the cancer, right?
You got it.
So
let me oh man, what else is on your mind?
Listen, man, I was sitting here trying to, recollect a little bit, and I was thinking about the leaders, right? That I previously had. Some leaders that probably weren't, who you would have wanted it to be, right? But again, I think I strongly believe, man, it's just a part of that journey, right? Where it's an obstacle. So you got to go around it, right? Decide how you want to do it. The easy route or go about it the long way or whatnot. But it holds even true, man, like in combat experiences and scenarios when you're downrange or whatever, and you have someone, shit hits the fan. What are you expected to do? You get what I'm saying? So I think all of that plays a role, man, and how we were trying to talk about, being the good teammate or whatnot, man. And there were times even downrange where, you got stuck in there like, are you going to make a decision? Or should I just, take some initiative and take charge and at least give us some protection, those kind of things or whatnot, man. So it's serious. Like, it might not be as serious to certain people that, depending on what they're doing, their way of living, when they're, in their specific jobs, like serving on a day basis, whatever branch of service they're in. But when you go out in there into the, when you go down range, man, it's a whole different ball game. And it's like, if your leadership game is not where you want it to be or where you think it should be, man, it'll tell when you're out there on the battlefield, man. I remember my first NCOER, right? It's probably like your Air Force appraisals. We call them NCOERs, evaluation reports.
Oh, okay. So ours are like the EPRs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the same stuff. So I remember and I was a young sergeant team leader, Sergeant E5. Right before deployment, I got put into a squad leader position. Right, this is back in like 2004, man. I'm in Hawaii.
How old are you when this is happening?
I was 20.
You're 20 years old.
Yeah.
How many guys?
Squad of guys, 9. An infantry squad is nine dudes,
Whoa,
8 dudes. So you got 2 team leaders,
right?
And then you're the squad. 2 team leaders. They got 3 dudes apiece. So 2 4-man teams essentially.
Okay.
And then you have you as a young staff sergeant, E6 are the squad leader, and then you're supposed to have 2 sergeant E5s. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, right? You got like 2 senior E4s in that leadership role where your job then becomes stronger, a little bit harder, because you got to be able to mentor and develop them for that increased responsibility as well. You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
So it's like it's a different driving force, but the way it happens is like, I remember just one thing where you talked about, are you set in for success and then you realized it and you're driving forward? Or was this something that you were creating all the way along and you were trying to write this book, right? This story with all these chapters of you, so from the time you joined through all your trials and tribulations in service, and now you're, post-retirement. It was the comment that my senior non-commissioned officer, who we look at as you got a raider and you got a senior raider, right? So it's that senior person that is on top of your raider, right? That's overlooking your performance. I remember that one comment. It's like that he put on there, for his bullets per se, right? And it was a combat proven leader, battlefield combat proven. But it's crazy, right? Because before you join the Army, you're like, yeah, I'm joining the Army, right? Yeah, first jump Army, second jump college, right? And then this turns into a whole lifetime, a whole story. And when you look at your first evaluation report and it says a proven combat leader, you're like, wow. I didn't think I would, when I signed up and signed on a line that is dotted that I'm coming in, I'm joining the infantry. But when you see that, you're like, yo, if this person who is supposed to be a senior to me said that about me, then now I need to really turn my game on. And I think I believe as well that it could be, right? What do we call it? We call it grooming, right? So you groom the individuals that that have provided that spark. And what I did differently when I was growing as a non-commissioned officer into certain leadership roles, not only the ones that provided the spark, but I would try to be fair across the board. And that one that was sitting in the back corner, hey, come here, just to get everybody on. Because look, when you go down range, you got to have everybody on that same sheet of music, man. And so it was one of the interesting things that when we're talking about molding leaders and mentoring and whatnot, it's one of the things that really was near and dear to my heart. It's just like, you remember that, you get settled into certain comments that people make and the positions that you're put in. But honestly, at the end of the day, you're the driving force. So I think your way ahead is going to go where you choose it to go. Again, it goes back to the obstacles, and how you maneuver around those obstacles is what's going to determine whether you stay on that path or veer off into, like you say, off-road, right? Start going off-roading or whatnot, man. It's pretty weird.
Jose, do you have a favorite military movie?
I want to say, what movie really, it's, to me, Black Hawk Down. When you talk about the two snipers, right? When I could see that movie over and over again, and you have no idea how many times I see that movie. The reason I bring back to that movie is because I was Shugart Gordon, right? I was with 10th Mountain, great unit. Nobody loves, right? Nobody likes the frozen chosen, as they call us down there in upstate New York. But the camaraderie in that unit, second to none. Like, I went to combat with those guys, and I could say that successfully. I'm here because of our training was on point. We went out there and executed, and our camaraderie was just that strong. And when you go out there and you have a unit where you provide your troops and get them ready, preparing for combat, you're going to go out there and execute it. Is there an opportunity or potential that something bad may happen? Of course, always, right? You can't ever count that out. But confidence is what drove a lot of our execution. And then so going through that training, continuing to build that confidence, you could just see that we would just prepare for anything. And then watching that movie, you have no idea, man, how I wish. And it's crazy. I don't know if you've ever felt like this watching a movie, but it's like that you could put yourself in those shoes of that. Like, would you do that? Would you go and find out where they were and find your way back? And like the way they defended themselves when that Black Hawk went down, it's like, man, if only I could get that quick reaction force ready in time to get back and just save those. Like, they went out heralded, man.
For sure.
Insane, man. I think there's so many good movies, man. But when you ask, it's like, yo, what sticks in the back of your mind, man? I just, the names, I'll never forget those two names, right? Just iconic dudes, however you want to call it.
Man, I can't remember their names either.
It's like Shugart Gordon. Yeah, okay. Master Sergeant Shugart and Gordon. So okay. It is funny because they named, when I spent some time, and tell me if I confirmed that incorrectly.
Yeah.
when I was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana, home of the Joint Readiness Training Center, they have a whole ordeal set up there named after those guys.
Really?
And it's like, yo, it's massive, Mach.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it was to go in, the whole Battle Drill 8 is how we used to call it, changed from 8 to 6, but in the infantry, that's what we call this shit, enter a building, clear a room or whatever, and it's like the whole, they named it after those guys, man. It's pretty neat.
Man. Where's this at again?
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, if ever, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Like if that's...
Yeah, it's a nice establishment, man. You go in there, do training drills, but you could do live fires there. It's pretty
really
neat.
Yeah,
pretty neat.
The opening scene to Black Hawk Down is, I don't know if you remember it or not, like the helicopter is going on the seashore.
Correct.
Like how it just comes in.
Yeah.
Great freaking movie, man.
Yeah.
My favorite scene from Black Hawk Down is the very end when they get back and they get in Chow.
Correct.
And I forget the guy's name, man, but he's like he's getting ready to go back out, and the other guy tells him, he's like, why do you do it, Hoot?
Yeah.
I forget what he says after it, but yeah, no, that one's, yeah, man. And the part where like the Black Hawk is down,
yeah,
and they're like, they're ripping him, the pilot's down to like his handgun, and he's like,
it's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's hard to watch some of that stuff, and the crazier aspect of it is like when you've been through certain things, like during your time as well, downrange in it, you actually feel it. Like when you go back in time and watch one of those movies again, you're like, I know exactly what that dude, what he's going through right now. And it's like the weirdest thing ever. And then you just feel helpless. You're like, man, if I can only turn back time, like the tactics, why didn't they do this? Why didn't do that? Yeah. But it's just like, right? It's like Mike Tyson said, man, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, man. And it's huge, man. Adapt and overcome it. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yep. When I was in Afghanistan, when I was in Bagram, I had a troop, and it was a unique dynamic of folks because a lot of the folks that were deployed with me on my immediate team or where I worked, they were young, and they were young females, like very young to the military, and so not only did I have to kind of like figure out the whole generational thing, I had to also really think about everything I said. I would think about it like 2 or 3 times. I didn't want to offend anyone, but one of my troops was a young man that he was having a really, really hard time, and he was somewhat ousted by the others. I think ultimately because he was not a female. He's younger African American guy. For whatever reason, he just didn't gel with, and he was being ousted, and I found myself taking him underneath my wing and so forth, and just even myself, I found he was quirky in a lot of ways, but one of the things was our battle rattle, we didn't have to wear it all the time, but when we did have to wear it, he would try to he wouldn't fully wear it, right? He one arm in, carrying. He looked like a typical Air Force guy, right? I'm like, dude, that's not gonna work, bro. You're hurting yourself. It's uneven. You're not wearing it properly. I was like, but here's the main thing. Shit can go down here at any given second. You're not gonna have the time to get yourself together. So just have yourself together in the event that, So December 21st, 2015, we're in a Monday afternoon, after lunch, 1 o'clock, we're in a meeting. The Monday morning meeting or so forth. And next door to our conference room was our TOC, right? Tactical Operations Center, right?
Yep.
And our commander comes in, real calm and collective dude. He's like, hey, real world, right? Hey, real world. We have, I forget what the acronym was for someone injured, but he's basically 2 mics out.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit. Like, so my job at that time in the Air Force was I was a medical logistics technician. So what that means is that you ultimately you're running the supply chain for that facility, and that facility was a one of the more robust hospitals in Afghanistan. We were like a level 1 trauma center.
Yeah.
So I'm not direct patient care, so I don't touch patients. So if you're in any job who's not direct patient care, is considered manpower. So what that means is that you're part of a team that has to respond to the helicopters that are landing to pull people off, right? So again, shit's hitting the fan. We know it's real world. We know it's 2 mics out. We get out there. We can see the birds coming in. They're landing at dust off. There was a gate, maybe 30 yards or so from the triage bay, and they called it the 9/11 gate. And that was I don't know why they named it that, but ultimately it's like a ramp. So, and that's where we would have all the litters, the NATO litters, and the rickshaws kind of like lined up. And helicopter lands, and it brought me back to Black Hawk Down, right? Because one of the things one of the things that I remember the most about the movie is, or reminds me the most, is the sound of a helicopter propeller. For some reason, that sound, whether it be in a movie or so forth, it brings me back to this day. And so what's happening is that these birds are landing, and what had happened was that we had an OSI team on the other, outside the wire. They were doing a hearts and mind visit to a local village where they were going to donate school supplies.
Yeah.
So what they were doing is they were going there the day prior to just talk to the village elders and so forth, because they were coming the next day. Yeah. So what ends up happening is, I guess, the way they pulled into the village, they were ultimately in a choke point, right? And a motorcycle, some guy on a motorcycle comes down. They were in between like the huts. They were made out of like clay or so forth. Yeah. And this dude detonated himself, right?
V-bit.
Yep. So here we are. We're going in and we're pulling these folks, off. But they were. You got to also. I try to explain to when my wife asked me about certain things, about my military like experience, especially like in Afghanistan. I'm like, you got to understand that the folks that are coming in first are the folks that can be triaged, right? If you're, right. So
it's a priority, right?
It's a priority,
it's hard to understand that from her standpoint. It's like, wait a minute, you're trained that way, right? But it's still sometimes it's like, woof, it's hard, it's difficult.
Difficult, right? Yeah. So there was a translator as part of this team, young girl, maybe 24 years old, 25 years old. She's, I want to believe she was their translator, Arabic or Farsi. I'm not exactly sure what the dialect was or anything, but she just had like a huge piece of shrapnel in her neck. But she's able to walk, but she just have this shrapnel, right? And I can't hear her, but I can see her. She's burnt, right? And she's just screaming. She's screaming, and I could just see that, right? She has this huge piece of shrapnel in her neck. She's bandaged up. I guess she got, some kind of like field, first aid. But now the helicopter blades are going. We ultimately get these folks off the birds, and they tell us, hey, stand by. There's 2 more birds coming, 7 mics out. I'm like, okay. So we're waiting there, and you can see the bird coming in. Bird comes in, and we have these headsets on that are like radio frequency, like, you know. So we have the guy running lead. He's giving us the instructions, right?
Yep.
So they call us over, and when we, you know, it's 4 people to a litter. So when we come in, we start pulling these folks off. They were KIA. They should have gone to the morgue.
Yeah.
But in the confusion, they got brought to the hospital.
Damn.
So, and this is all happening so fast to the point that they had nothing to cover them with. Yeah. They didn't have blankets. They didn't have any body bags or anything like that. And these folks were like, they were just completely blown up, right? Yeah. So they come, and the first person that we pull off, they're just, unfortunately, this guy's arm is just falls to the ground. You know, like instinctively, you're not thinking about gore or like your stomach's not even turning. It's happening so fast. So like I pick up his arm, I put it on his chest, and instinctively I run back to the supply closet and just grabbed a handful of sheets, bed sheets.
Correct.
Right. And because they're clean, right? It's the linen closet. And I run back like as fast as I could to properly cover them. Right. So whenever I watch Black Hawk Down, that whole thing just like relives itself.
Yep.
Later that day, because again, this is happening so fast. Later that day, one of the nurse technicians sees me in the hallway of the hospital. She's like, "Hey, Mach, like, did you know that Bones, this a friend of mine, his name was Bone Acosta. Yep. We called him Bones. That he was on those planes."
Damn. So
he was the one that we pulled. So he was part of the group of us that in process together.
Yeah.
And I had just seen him. This was on a Monday. I had just seen him that Thursday at the gym, and he clearly lost his life that day. Yeah. And it was just like, it's just like the craziest thing, man, because you know, you go through this thing where, you know, you start feeling guilty, right? Because like, or survivor's remorse is what my therapist calls it, right? But because at that time, I want to say like he was either having a baby or his wife had the baby already. And I just think, you know, because it was right before Christmas, it was December 21st. So like every Christmas from that time forward, I'm always like thinking about that day around the holidays, because I always think to myself, like, what's his daughter's what's her holiday experience, you know, like without her father. And then again, like going back to the survivor's remorse, is like, why did it have to be him? Like, why couldn't it be me on that trip? Not to make it about me, but what, you know, I don't know, man. Like we got onto the Black Hawk thing and Black Hawk Down, and I just always think about that.
I think survivor's remorse is a real thing. My brother just invited me to a gig. He's part of the Masonic group out of a brotherhood that they have in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna say any names just because I don't want to get the name wrong. But nonetheless, he was like, "Hey, you know, I want to do something different. Memorial Day was coming up." This was like 9 months ago, Maj. This is how serious he was about the thing.
Right.
So he's running pretty much the ship and doing his leadership throughout this entire year. And he was like, "Can you come on out and pitch something? You know, Memorial Day's coming. We love the train. We love to, you know, got a bunch of veterans in our group. Can we do something different? I just, you know, we're sitting here like watching PowerPoints and stuff like that, which is fine, but I just want to do something different, man. You got any thoughts in mind?" And the first thing that came to mind for me was, you know, because I'm huge on Memorial Day now, right? And the advocate part of me says, let me be the one to assist right? Because I'm not going to do this overnight, and it's probably not going to happen this year. It may not even ever happen, but bringing back the memorial back into Memorial Day, right? And so the first thing that came to my mind was, how about I do a fallen comrade, right? Table. You familiar with that one? We also know it as a missing in action, right? The MIA table, the POW table. So there's different versions, right? And then so the thing that came to mind with me was the fallen comrade table, because I'll be honest with you, man, Memorial Day for me, I lost my supervisor, Sergeant First Class James Doster, man, during the 2007 deployment. And for me, you know, not that he was the only one we lost 17, we had 17 KIAs in 2007. One battalion time for 17 KIAs. The first one happened 3 weeks into the deployment. So that right there was eye-opening itself. And so for me, going through Memorial Days, right? Memorial Day, when it was instituted, originally was May 30th, right? Go figure, right? May 30th. It's Memorial Day, right? What does Memorial Day signify? And so I went to do a speakership about Memorial Day. I think I had told you about getting invited to that. Yes. And so I gave that speakership, and solely the entire intent was, let's talk about Memorial Day, and then I'm going to lead into his fallen comrade table, which I had to display out there. It was beautiful, right? And the reason I selected to do that was because that fallen comrade table has become one with me and my family ever since, right? And the reason I say that is because I got this portrait of Sergeant Doster, and it's probably one of the nicest portraits, almost something out of a magazine, God rest his soul. And it was of us downrange. And what this dude did, what this tremendous leader did, father, husband, the entire nine, to come back into a line unit and take the helm like he did as a platoon sergeant, and then he paid the ultimate sacrifice. So for me, that was eye-opening. And so how we do it is simply this, right? We don't take anything away from Memorial Day March. It's going to be hard to do that as a society. I strongly believe we should bring the memorial back into Memorial Day. And it's simple. It's going by how the act was initially pushed out. Wherever you are, 1,500 hours, 3 p.m. for those who don't know, on Memorial Day, have a 60-second moment of silence for those, right, that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and to support those ones that were left behind, right? The widow, the children, so forth, the parents or whatnot, because they're living through something different. Meanwhile, we're popping burgers and rolling the hot dogs, right? Which you don't take that fun away if that's what it is. But in case you didn't know, there's a lot of things going on in Congress where there's some folks out there, some representatives out there that are trying to get it away from and how it is now, like hey, let's make it a 4-day weekend. And then the introduction to the summer, let's go ahead and push it back to May 30th so we can bring back that memorial back into Memorial Day. So to me, it's a different driving force when it comes to Memorial Day. We still have our fun. Wherever I'm at, Mach, whoever I'm celebrating with, it's funny because they know, they expect it, especially my internal family. And you see it, man. It's just like a snap. Can I have everybody's attention? It's 14:59, 14:58. Real quick. Nobody even asked questions. My fallen comrade table is set up. And as soon as 15, hey, before I roll in there, can I ask everybody for 60 seconds, moment of silence for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice? And it's crazy. It doesn't matter who is in my party, at my place, who's hanging out. Everybody automatically, just like they're military, right? Family members that have no military bearing whatsoever. Snap to attention. Everybody shuts up. 60 seconds. Let's do it. Boom. Thank you, guys. And then it's the greatest thing ever. And then everybody moves on and has a different respect for that day. And lo and behold, they never knew that before. it used to be May 30th by itself because it was a day of memorializing those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And now it lives with me, period, right? I grew up, right, at the Parque, getting into the freaking Lago with the burgers and the hot dogs, and now it just became a norm for me. Ever since when you start living through these experiences that you, God forbid, don't want anybody to live through, but it's different because now you have to at least, recognize and help and at least preach to pay that for those. But it kind of like you said, man, you start reliving those things, right? Think about it. You're sitting there enjoying your family time, which, like I said, nothing wrong with it, right? That's how, as society, we grew that way, right? For one reason or another, and that's just what the culture became. But when you start thinking about that, you're like, damn, it's bigger than just the hot dog and the burger and open the swimming pools or whatnot. It's like we're doing it because we were in the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, some people didn't come back, right? And I mean, I've had those near and dear experiences to where I'm fortunate to be sitting right here,
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation, even having this conversation or whatnot. I got how I call it, the good end of the stick,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because obviously that ultimate sacrifice is not returning back. And I had the opportunity to return back, even during unfortunate circumstances and scenarios and explosions and short burst of enemy interaction here, there, every day for 3 straight days for a whole week or whatnot, and it turns you on differently, bro. And it's a serious thing. And then to me, I always turn back the time and relate. It's just like, not everybody really knows, man. And it sucks because we had a good conversation earlier. You mentioned something about PTSD, 2015, 2016, if I'm not mistaken, that you were referring to. Look, believe it or not, man, I didn't get diagnosed until 2019. I joined the Army in 2009.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
99.
99.
Yeah.
1999.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, what does that tell you? That means one or two things, right? Lack of education, and I lost so many years of therapy that I could have been already working towards something better post, right? But unfortunately, and that's why I thank God every day, it's like, man, I lost a good 10 years plus of therapy towards traumatic brain injury that I could have had, all because I just was uneducated, and 2, I just didn't have that leadership there ensuring, and it's partial blame on protocols as well, on how to take care of folks that, us that have seen something traumatic, and now it's like it's hard to put that away because every time we see something, a movie, as innocent as a movie could be, but you start reliving those same scenarios over and over, and people don't realize that could just be one thing out there that triggers those moments, man. And PTSD, it's not only coupled by itself, it's coupled with anxieties, TBI, all of that stuff is like a triangle of, what do they call it? I think a good term to use is like a triangle of helplessness, because like you go to one corner, you got PTSD, you go to the other one, you got TBI, you go to the other, you got anxiety. Bro, where do I get out, right? And it's important that we continue to spread this word, man, because fixes are not going to come overnight. But in reality, whatever we can find to help the veteran force, the community, these veterans that are going through these struggles that me and you were discussing earlier, it's like we need anything and everything that we can get, even if it's bits and pieces. But together, we can just mold this together and drive to something bigger and better, and ultimately, hopefully, create that form of therapy that we need, man. It's messed up.
Yeah, man. I was telling you earlier, right? Like, I noticed in myself something was off.
Yeah.
After that deployment to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I felt different like leading up to it, but I just think that we're so used to going so fast and going just go, get things done, that you start to learn how to ignore things and put things on the back burner. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And you know, when we think about the service, right? The way I equate that is just that it's service, service to everyone else but yourself, everything else but yourself, right? You're in the service of everyone but not you, or everything not you. And I think that you're almost trained for so long to think like that. Like even in the Air Force core values, right? Service before self.
Yep.
Right. But in 2016, I definitely noticed something different. I felt different. It was actually pretty scary. Now, with that being said, you know, for me, I just thought to myself, from what I had seen, what I have experienced prior or seen prior was, you know, for the most part, folks will not pursue help. They will not pursue therapy or any kind of like helping agency because they're so worried about what the backlash would be in terms of like their career.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I can relate to that. And I know you probably found it like, whoa, this is mind blowing coming at 1999 and to officially be, you know, sit down with a counselor, with a psychiatrist, psychologist. And then when they ask you these questions, you're like, well, wait a minute. I didn't know you were going to ask, you know, but they catch you off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start going through a reliving a tragic event, man, it doesn't really hit you until you just feel yourself like you're into that room by yourself with this person that's just taking down notes. But that question that they asked, you start reliving that, and it almost is the weirdest deal ever, man. And you don't realize how jacked up you are until you actually start restating that story, trying to relive that tragic, that traumatic event is what they call it, honestly. And like, I still struggle with those things right now, those same things, whether or not it's like, oh, I think the backlash for me, the stigma was always first and foremost in the back of my, I never wanted to give it, even though it was always preached, hey, look, even the leaders go in, need a mental health day, like your wife was alluding to.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe the stigma never really faded as much as they still wanted to harp on it, man. I mean, think about it. The way your path was going to go developmentally, leadership, opportunities, but then it started affecting your personal life as well. It's like, oh, wait a minute, if you're getting help, then you can't per se own a weapon, or you can't, one thing led to the next. So it's almost, they really pretty much, stigma just to like, I think went off with no end in sight.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, for the people that really believe that they were truly able to get their help and therapy and get through, like, I'm grateful for those folks that were able to, find that balance and get what they needed to get them through the bad times. But it was just hard, man. I really do think that the stigma will still hang, at least on the Army side, man, which is unfortunate. How it's been since I got out, I can't really, confirm or deny it. But I just know that with the VA itself, if you can find what works for you, it's hard to change the entire VA. The VA has gotten better in my 4 years of experience in the VA. But if you can find out what works better for you as a person, then you can take that and share it with your freaking closest friends. I think that'll go a long way too. See, I don't go out and and give horror stories about the VA. Here's what I say. Well, I can't tell you how the VA used to be, but what I can tell you is how the VA has been with me, what I have learned, and what I use to navigate through the VA obstacles, right? And for me, to the present, it has worked. I get what I should get because I go out there and seek, right? Because I know it's out there, but it's unfortunate that the folks can't get onto it. Sometimes, it doesn't end up in the best of terms, but I don't give the horror stories. I say find out what's going to work best for you. When you start going into the VA realm to get your assistance and everything that you need, it's going to be hard for you to try to take care of everybody. Take care of yourself first, and then start moving out and using whatever platform you have with your community, with your veteran friendships, to see how folks can seek more assistance. Because I think it's a never-ending battle, man. And I know people want to end to it, but I just think that we have to maintain relevancy. Even in the state of PTSD and everything that's attached to it, we have to maintain relevancy and live in the present moment in order to get everybody over, those that are affected, over certain hurdles, man. It's just not the same. Everybody's encounters are different. We can't change that.
Man, that's some really good stuff, Jose. I mean, you're really tapping on like the core stuff. You know what I mean? When I hear folks complain about the VA, I have people in my family, barbecue, get together, and they start bad mouthing the VA or whatever it is. And one of the things I tell them is, could you imagine if we didn't even have the VA?
Absolutely.
Like imagine imagine it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Imagine that. You know what I mean? Yeah. For instance, like Social Security, right? Social Security was implemented after the Depression, right?
Correct.
FDR implemented the Social Security because he saw how the Depression affected the elder community.
Correct.
Right? And felt that there should be some sort of like subsidized by the government, right? Could you imagine if we didn't have that right now? There's a lot of folks that it'd be crucial, right?
Yeah.
So listen, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect.
No.
But to your point, like I'm not gonna badmouth anyone. And then also, everyone loves to be the Monday morning quarterback, man. Like same thing with like politics and all this kind of stuff. That's why I really try to stay away from that sort of stuff because I'm not a politician. So I don't know exactly. I mean, I have my own ideas about certain things and my own theories and I'm about, I've always been I feel like a logical person. I try to be anyway. And if it's just not logical, then you're just blowing smoke up my ass then, right? Like, you're just telling me, the same game, that you're not telling me anything different, right?
Everybody wants to be a president. Everybody knows how to be a president, but nobody wants to run for office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
that's
for
how
sure,
I look at it, right?
Everybody
looking at it from the outside in, man, that's what it boils down to.
Everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit, right?
That's it. And it's like you're trying to make sense out of again, it goes back to be the cure, not the cancer, right? What's the solution?
Mm-hmm.
Let's find a solution instead of continuing to badmouth. Let's look for an improvement, right? You're not looking for an ultimate fix, but what is a start? Where is the start?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we go from there? And I think, again, man, it's obstacles everywhere, brother. You look left, look right, the obstacle is there. You're going to find out it was an obstacle when you surpass that obstacle. And then you're going to be like, yeah, what did I use to get through with that? Yeah, I'm gonna do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a learning curve, man, nonetheless. So it's crazy.
Jose, I did not know that you were a Purple Heart recipient until I saw your pin on your tie at work.
Yeah, and I remember you. It's funny. I didn't know that you were serious or not. And so what I tell people is like, I've had my Purple Heart placed now for what on my truck for, I want to say it's been about 2017. So it was going on for a good 5 years, right? 6 years. I joined the Military Order of the Purple Heart Foundation at that time as well. And then so when you asked me that the other day, I didn't realize I did. Sometimes, I wear certain things just subtle. Sometimes I'll wear a hat like I'm wearing today, and it was crazy because I went to go visit Africa headquarters a couple of weeks ago, and I had my hat on, and I was traveling, and then when I got to the airport, got to get the rental car, I went into the facility, and this dude looked at me. He goes, just random, right? Don't know who this person is. And I'm just sitting there, they canceled my rental car, so I was going through that. I was trying to figure that out, and the guy randomly, he goes, hey, you a Purple Heart? You got a Purple Heart for real? I see you wearing a hat, so I didn't want to and I was like, yeah, yes, sir. And he was like, can I shake your hand? And I said, sure. He's like, really, thank you for your service. He was like, yeah. I said, I'll be honest with you, right? Usually I don't want to engage in the conversation, but if you're not a Purple Heart recipient, you shouldn't wear it. And he started laughing. I said, however, there's a lot of gear out there that say Purple Heart supporter, right? You're more than welcome to feel that. And he was like, no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. He was like, it's crazy. I never met somebody with a Purple Heart. I said, they're out there. You'll run into them just like you just ran into me.
Yeah.
So I had no idea I do it out of, not that I wanted to hold my tie in place, found these little things to kind of just like keep the Purple Heart spirit alive, let folks know it's like, yo, amongst you have no idea, but there's people that shed some blood during whatever encounter they were doing when they were downrange in support of the nation or whatnot, trying to get the mission done. Not by choice, but it almost sounds cliche, but by accident per se, right? Nobody goes out and says, hey, we're going on this mission. And we'll come out here. We all gonna come out here with Purple Hearts, right? I mean, that's not what the intent is, right?
Right.
We're gonna come out here and we're gonna execute and we're gonna bring everybody back, right? I had those conversations with my own troops, my own soldiers downrange. Yo, this is gonna be a hairy situation, but we're gonna come in here, we're gonna execute it, and we'll come out here and we're gonna party, right? We're gonna raise the glass, we're gonna raise a toast, however you want to just call it or whatnot. We're gonna be able to regroup and AAR this thing afterwards. But nobody goes in and says, yo, we're going in here and you and I are going to come out with awards. That's not just what it is, right? So the thing about a Purple Heart, man, is just like, you don't go out there and talk about the stories. You don't say, how these things happened or whatnot. It's like one of those things where it's like somebody says, yo, what happened to Purple Heart? Was it, you asking me about a Purple Heart, usually that entails, an alcoholic beverage to be present to get it, right? It's called the war story, right, Mont? Right. So what I say is, yeah, man, unfortunately, and then I guess with my story itself, fortunately, I am, you're alive to speak about the incident. Unfortunately for me, it was an incident where it was more of from an unconscious state. So it was a story being told by others to me after the fact. So that way I can understand the order of events on how it went down for me. And then but ultimately it was from ultimately from an EFP, an explosively formed projectile, which is a form of an IED, an improvised explosive device. So much more powerful, right? So when you're talking about 2007, we're talking about my first deployment was in 2001, Right. So from 2001, 2007, these homemade bombs. I mean, these things it was a job out there, right? You were looking for the best men for the force to create this thing. So they got better. The enemy got better in trying to penetrate our armor. But these EFPs were nothing to mess with, man. And this one right here, mine specifically, if I show you photos of my vehicle, which was an Up Armor Humvee, right? And for this piece of copper, 10 inches in radius, mine was, to penetrate an Up Armor vehicle, ridiculous. And then so to look at the aftermath of the vehicle, which everybody, I promise you, sees the aftermath of the vehicle. Excuse me, you were in that vehicle? Yeah, right. And then so when you look at that vehicle, just the pictures alone, this dude didn't survive, did he? Actually, he did. You're talking to him. And the crazy thing about it, Mach, is like when I was a part of that, and when I start having recollection of it, really, if I show you the video, the photos, you'll be like, dude, this is you. Yes. So then when you do the math and you go, so you're saying not even a second, not even half a second more, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. That's how close it was. That's how grateful I am that the enemy is not as smart as the greatest army in the in the whole wide world, right? The U.S. Army, man, is just like, for the dudes that we have, as impressive as our force is today, culminating our 248th birthday, right, June 14th, it's like you have to be nothing but grateful for these men and women that sign out to do what they do, man, because as impressive as we are, right, in order for that enemy that day, July 17th, the early hours, 2007, for the enemy to say, I can't get too close because these dudes are badass, right? But I can try to get close enough to see if I can cause some damage. And that's what happened to us. Mm-hmm. That's what happened to me on the hours of 2007, July 17th, in the early hours of that morning, right? And to say that the enemy couldn't get that close because of how impressive and we're a force to be reckoned with, but they got close enough to almost put us out. And gratefully for us, everybody in the vehicle ringing in the ears, other than me going unconscious, but ringing in the ears, banged up, shook for what it was. And that wasn't the first one. That was just one that we ended up having to get processed through the hospital. Mm. There were plenty others that it's like my wife doesn't know about, my parents don't know about, but the only ones that know about it is that relationship, a group of guys that were with us, during those are traumatic events. Whether you want to believe them or not, they are. But like you said, when you're in theater, time is flying. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh, yeah, we just got blown up. And then like nothing, right? But so you have these conversations with your cousins or with your, I'm having this conversation with you. You served in the Air Force. I served in the Army, but you've seen and heard these stories, if not lived them, and it's still mind-boggling to really put yourself in an Army movie and Call of Duty and a video game or whatnot. It's legit. My kids will randomly tell me they're having a bad day. You're not having a bad day, brother. Mm-hmm. It's an obstacle. Find out how you're gonna go around it. Get to the other side. And then these are my teenagers, and they're like, I said, get shot at. Get a bomb blown up in front of you and tell me what you're going to do now, right? How are you going to get through that? Damn, he's right. I don't have anything to tell my dad right now. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there is having a worse day than you are right now. Get through this obstacle. Find out how you're going to break it down, right? Mm-hmm. Step 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D. Get around it. I guarantee you're going to come back and be like, yo, I did it. Right. Now keep going on your path, right? It was just an obstacle. Mm-hmm. So someone in life is going to have something going on worse than what you're having for what you consider a bad day. And every day, Mats, I relive it. Nobody really knows this, but I relive those events, right, that I remember. And then what I got told in bits and pieces. And if it wasn't for that, for those courageous men and women, in my case, I've really never served the women in the infantry per se. Non-career opportunities I did. But in the infantry, those boys, man, they had my back that day. That early morning, they had my back, man, and they took care of 3 dudes. That's what I said, a force to be reckoned with. 3 tangos on the other side. It was legit. It was real. And how they explained it to me, yeah, because guess what? In order for them to get as close as they did, even though they didn't put me out, they did take my vehicle out of the convoy, though, which for them was an intent, could have been an intent, but they lost their 3 dudes in the process, and then we were able to survive just for that very moment. Mm-hmm. Now, the long-lasting effects of that is, again, we're going back to post-retirement. You have PTSD. You have growing anxiety. you have traumatic brain injury. So those are the long-lasting effects, right? So ultimately, could you say that the enemy won? Of course, I guess, because you've affected me now for the rest of my life, whether I want to own that and truly believe that. The people around me in my close circle know that, and they understand that because they live it every day with me. And then so I have to, as a person, as a father, as a husband, as someone who wants to continue to go out there and mentor kids and be an advisor and be just, a motivator per se, right? I have to be able to own that I have issues, and I still do. And every day I find out that, dang, I had an obstacle that was presented to me. And emotionally, right, is key. I acted emotionally, which is not correct, all because I couldn't circle back and relive that one moment and say, just like I tell my kids every day, hey, this is an obstacle. Stop, pause, go through your steps. Let's get around it.
Heavy duty.
It's much.